today is couched in a more modern language and easier to understand. And there are many key concepts in this text to which naturally we will draw attention. For some strange reason, the title of the Upanishad, Mundaka. Now, Mundaka means shaving of the head, one whose head is shaved. That is a renunciate. A renunciate, his head is completely shaved. And even the funeral ceremonies are performed. He is taken as dead to the world, dead to his past. So those ceremonies he goes through. He wears totally new robes, head is completely shaved, and he is given a new name. Now, this Upanishad obviously was communicated to a renunciate. That is why it is called Mundaka Upanishad. In most of the older scriptures, they always narrate how it has come to be, who revealed it to whom. And here he begins. I will read the Sanskrit later. Brahma, first of the gods, was born, the creator of all, the world's protector. Brahma is the creator. Now you will kindly note that Brahma is different from Brahman. Brahman is the impersonal reality, both in its transcendent aspect as also in its universal context. That is Brahman. Brahma is the God who creates. There are a trinity of gods in the Hindu pantheon. Brahma is the creator. Vishnu is the preserver. And would you like me to write the names, or you are familiar? Maheshwara is the one who withdraws everything into its original cause. So here Brahma, he, the first of the gods, creator of all and the world's protector. He, to Atharvan, his eldest son, declared the God knowledge in which all sciences have their foundation. This knowledge given by God Brahma to his son, who became a very famous sage called Atharvan, he gives this God knowledge. And this God knowledge is the basis of all sciences. The God knowledge by Brahma declared to Atharvan, Atharvan of old declared to Angira, he to Satyavaha, the Bharadwaja told it, the Bharadwaja to Angiras, both the higher and the lower knowledge. The genealogy of transmission is not very important for us, but in this verse what is to be noted is both the higher and the lower knowledge have been revealed. God knowledge consists of both the higher and the lower knowledge. Shaunaka, the great household means householder. It is not only spiritual people, renunciates, who had the right to learn God knowledge, but even householders. He came to Angiras in the due way of the disciple and asked of him. In the due way of the disciple, a certain attitude is expected of one who wants to learn knowledge from a teacher. He must have the humility, he must have the desire, a burning desire for that knowledge, a readiness to apply himself to the knowledge that is given to him. So, in the due way of the disciple, he comes and asks, Lord, by knowing what does all this that is become known? This is a key sentence in the Upanishadic literature. Knowing what all this comes to be known? That there is a key knowledge, there is a basic knowledge, which when you know, you automatically come to know everything else. And that is the knowledge of the reality, knowledge of Atman, knowledge of Brahman. When you know that, everything else is known, because everything is a becoming of that being. To him thus spoke Angiras, twofold is the knowledge that must be known, of which the knowers of the Brahman tell, the higher and the lower knowledge. Then what's the lower knowledge? The lower knowledge is what starts at our end. The Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda and the Atharva Veda. Now, the hymns of the Veda, they have been compiled in 4 collections. The first collection, which is a hymnal, inspired verses, prayers to the gods, which are recited at the times of sacrifice, which are recited in the course of one's spiritual endeavor. They are collected as Rig Veda. Rig means shining. Then a few of them and instructions regarding the rituals in prose, they are called the Yajur Veda. Some of the selections of these hymns set to music for sacrificial purposes, they are called the Sama Veda, and some of these, and later verses referring to occultism, medicine, and number of other secular branches constitute the Atharva Veda. In common understanding, Veda is considered to be a revelation and something supreme. But you will note that here it is classed under the lower knowledge. Chanting, ritual, grammar, etymological interpretation, prosody, astronomy. Now these are kind of subsidiary branches of Vedic study and practice. There are special teachers who teach how to chant, how to perform the ritual, how words are derived, the way the meters are combined, and astronomy. And then the higher, by which is known the immutable. That knowledge is the higher knowledge by which one knows the reality that is unchanging, unmoving. That the invisible, invisible by the physical eye, unseizable, unseizable by the senses, without connections, without hue, without eye or ear, that which is without hands or feet, and yet eternal, pervading, which is in all things, and impalpable, that which is imperishable, that which is the womb of creatures. The sages behold everywhere. This is the immutable, which is the object of the higher knowledge. No Veda, no science can teach of this reality, which is unseizable by the senses, unspeakable by human speech, unmoving, and yet all pervading. These paradoxes, contradictory expressions are used with a purpose. It is not that the seers were not capable of coherent thinking, but these are juxtaposed deliberately with a view to shock the mind out of its familiar pattern of thinking, and something like the Zen technique of shocking and stunning the active intelligence, so that for a moment you are open to an impact of what is beyond the mind. That is the idea behind this deliberate positing of opposite adjectives describing the unknowable, describing the unknown. Then he describes how all this has come to be. As the spider puts out and gathers in, as herbs spring up upon the earth, as hair of head and body grow from a living man, so here all is born from the immutable. All here is directly born of this reality. There is no intermediate agency which creates this universe. It is what may be described as a direct emanation from the being of the Supreme. That being so, this is as real, as worthy as the reality which we seek to realize. It is false to make a distinction that this is different and that is different, and this is inferior and that is superior. The cause is Brahman. Brahman grows by his energy at work. Energy, Shakti, power. That is, by concentration of force, by spreading of energy, he grows. This is again a famous aphorism. Brahman grows by his power at work. Man or human beings also grow when they work. The more energy you put forth, the more is the expression, and more nature pours herself into you. So it is not withdrawal but extension through work, spreading oneself through work, activity. That is the key to life. And because Brahman grows by his energy, from him is matter born. Out of matter life and mind and truth and the worlds. And then he concludes, and in works immortality. Immortality is achieved not by quietude, not by quiescence, but by works. Activity alone lays the foundation of eternity. Note how the idea of evolution step by step has there in this verse, which must be at least 3,000 years old. From him matter is born. Out of matter comes life. Out of life comes mind. Out of mind truth is going to be born. And out of all these, the various worlds of mind, life, matter, and various other worlds which are not described here. It is a successive emergence of principles from one and another from that, and so on. And the reality, Brahman, who is the source of all this? He who is the omniscient, the all-wise. Note the distinction between omniscient and the all-wise. There is a distinction between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is awareness of the truth of things, processes, and the cream of this knowledge, the result of all this knowledge in your consciousness, which is understanding. That is wisdom. Knowledge is knowing. Wisdom is understanding. He whose energy is all made of knowledge, that is, energy is not a mechanical energy as was being made out by physical science for long. Energy, there is consciousness in it. There is a knowledge in the heart of energy. At the head of energy there is wisdom. In the heart of energy there is knowledge. So energy is not something just driven, self-driven or by anything, something mechanical, but there is an intelligence in it. I was describing, I don't know here or in some of the classes recently, how wherever there is power, there is consciousness. Wherever there is consciousness, power is inherent in it. Consciousness is not something inert, something just static. It has always a power to effectuate what it knows, and that is the power content of energy, consciousness. And energy is a form of force, and force is power in action. From him is born this that is Brahman here. Brahman is not in the heavens beyond, in a paradise. But here, all this that you see, all this that you live, that is Brahman. This name and form and matter. Name, form and matter. Now first there is matter. Matter is an emanation or a formation of the energy of Brahman. In other words, it is a concretization of the spirit. It is a self-becoming of Brahman. And name, everything that has become gets a form first. Now a form has always a meaning. A form of a thing is always a summation of the contents. According to the contents inside is the shape, is the form of a thing. You may say form is an external configuration of the contents, and a name is an index of the qualities and powers that are inherent in a thing. A name is not arbitrary. It is not a label. In the Hindu tradition, you will be interested to know that when a child is born, it is not by choice that people give names. There is a special class of people who have specialized in casting horoscopes, study of planets, and they study under which star is the child born. That is, what star was there in the firmament when the child came to birth. That indicates a certain connection of the power, celestial power, that not only presides but directs the evolution of that soul in that direction. Then they cast the horoscope at this moment, under this star, this time, this day, the child is born. And they get to know the likely lines of the development, how long the child is likely to live, what will be the temperament, what is likely to be the line of life led by the child when it grows, what are the dangers. Now all this in an outline they can study. This is called casting of the horoscope. And from all that they decide upon a name which sums up all this prevision, and that name is given when the child, on the 12th day, when it is put in a cradle and there is a ceremony, and the father or an elderly member of the family repeats that name and blesses the child. Thereafter all the elders come, put their little presents, and that child is known by that name. Where this system is still honored and done, this is the way. But nowadays, with the impact of the Western artificiality in many matters, they choose a name which is rhythmic, which is harmonious, and young parents like to put name of film stars on their children, and so it goes on. But that tradition is dying. Cities it is dead, but in the interior this tradition is still alive, that a name has a meaning. In our ashram, for instance, when a number of people would join, they would want to forget their past. They would like to open a new life. So they would ask Mother or Sri Aurobindo to give them a new name. And Mother would always see into the soul. What's that soul come for? What is its destiny? What is its line of sadhana, goal? She will give that name. And that name will be a constant reminder that I have to be worthy of this name. So, for instance, one person was given the name of Satyakarma. Satyakarma means one who expresses truth in action. All his activities must be expressions of truth. So it is a constant reminder. There were many people like that. Many Western friends particularly, they would always like to have Indian names, and to some of the Indians she would give Western names. That also was done. And these names, it has a significance. That's what I was telling you. This name and form and matter. For those who are more interested, there is a chapter in Life Divine of Sri Aurobindo, in the second volume, second chapter. There he explains the real significance of name and the real significance of form. In Vedantic literature, Shankara, Advaita and others, name and form are deprecatorily used to indicate fleeting things which have no meaning, which have to be discarded. But in the Upanishads and Sri Aurobindo's teaching, philosophy, they are used as valuable, significant indices to the quality of a thing, to the contents of a thing, to the constituents of a thing. Now, I think I should read out this chapter so that you get familiar with the rhythm of Sanskrit. ब्रह्मदेवानां प्रथमः संबभूव विश्वस्य कर्ता भुवनस्य गोप्ता स ब्रह्म विद्यां सर्वविद्या प्रतिष्ठां अथर्वाय ज्येष्ठपुत्राय प्राह अथर्वणेयं प्रवदेत ब्रह्मा अथर्वातां पुरोवाचाङ्गिरे ब्रह्म विद्या स भारद्वाजाय सत्यवाहाय प्राह भारद्वाजोऽङ्गिरसे परावरां शौनको ह वै महाशालो अङ्गिरसं विधिवदुपसन्ना पप्रच्छ कस्मिन् नो भगवो विज्ञाते सर्वमिदं विज्ञातं भवतीति. These are verses. Then prose. तस्मै स होवाच द्वे विद्ये वेदितव्ये इति हस्म यद् ब्रह्मविदो वदन्ति पराच अपराच तत्र अपरा ऋग्वेदो यजुर्वेदः सामवेदः अथर्ववेदः शिक्षा कल्पः व्याकरणं निरुक्तं छन्दो ज्योतिषम् इति अथ परा यया तद् अक्षरम् अधिगम्यते यत्तद् अद्देश्यम् अग्राह्यम् अग्रोत्रम् अवर्णम् अचक्षुषश्रोत्रम् तद् अपाणिपादम् नित्यं विभुं सर्वगतं सुसूक्ष्मं तदव्ययं तत् भूतयोनिं परिपश्यन्ति धीराः यथोर्णनाभे सृजते गृह्णते च यथा पृथिव्याम् औषधयः सम्भवन्ति यथा सतः पुरुषात् केशलोमानि तथा क्षरात् संभवति विश्वम् तपसा चीयते ब्रह्म ततोऽन्नो अभिजायते अन्नात् प्राणो मनः सत्यं लोकः कर्मसु चामृतं यः सर्वज्ञः सर्वविद्यस्य ज्ञानमयं तपः तस्मादेतद् ब्रह्म नाम रूपं मनं च जायते. नेक्स्ट. तदेतत् सत्यं मंत्रेषु कर्माणि कवयो यान्यपश्यंस्तानि त्रेतायां बहुधा सन्ततानि तान्याचरत नियतं सत्यकामाः येष वः पन्थः सुकृतस्य लोके. This is that the truth of things. This is all that you see and feel and live, the universe. This is that the truth of things. Works which the sages beheld in the mantras, that is sacrifices to the gods for earning a birth in the paradise, for earning benefits. That is the ritualistic aspect of religion. So he describes there works which the sages beheld in the mantras were in the Treta manifoldly extended. Treta, in the Indian conception, there are 4 ages. The Satya Yuga, the age of truth. Krita Yuga, the age of fulfillment. Treta Yuga, the 3rd age. Kali Yuga, the Iron Age. In the first age, the truth is full-bodied. It has 4 pillars. In the second, it has only 3 pillars. In the third, it has 2. In the Iron Age, it has only 1 leg. The Dharma, the truth. So he speaks of an earlier age in which these sacrifices were being understood, were being performed. And this is addressed to those who are still wedded to life of comfort, who want to enjoy things regardless of the divine calling. He says, works do ye perform religiously with one passion for the truth. This is your road to the heaven of good deeds. To the heaven of good deeds. Heaven is considered to be lower state than the state of Brahman, the reality. He explains further, when the fire of the sacrifice is kindled and the flame sways and quivers, then between the double pourings of butter, cast therein with faith thy offerings. There is a process, there is a procedure. Follow that. You must have faith in what you are doing. Because, he says, if you don't do these with faith, with proper attention to the requirements, then you are not going to get the blessings of paradise and all the various worlds. He says, for he whose altar fires are empty of the new moon offering and the full moon offering and the offering of the rains and the offering of the first fruits, are unfed or fed without right ritual, without guests, without the dues to the devas, destroys all his hope of the seven worlds. Now, there are fixed timings when you perform. Fixed timings, seasons. There is a full moon occasion, there is a new moon occasion, there is the beginning of rain, there is the beginning of autumn, where nature completes a cycle and starts another cycle. They are the timings which are fruitful for something new to ensue and something wrong of the past to stop. So the ancients always paid attention to these what are called significant hours in the cycle of time. So you have to be careful to observe the right timings. And second is, you must share. You can't do just alone. You must share what you get. You must have plenty of guests. And you must offer to the gods. Gods who are the custodians and the guardians of the world's directions, north, east, west, south, and so on. If one does not do these, then he destroys his hope of the seven worlds of enjoyment. Then he gives the name of the seven sparks. Now, 7 tongues of fire. You know, there are 7 principles of existence. Matter, that is the physical. Life, that is the vital. Mind, mental. The knowledge, true knowledge, from the based on the principle of light. Then Ananda, the principle of bliss. Chit, principle of consciousness. And Sat, principle of existence. Now these 7 principles are embedded in every unit in creation. And corresponding to these 7 levels of existence are conceived 7 fires. A fire is what reaches your offering to the gods. So he says, Kali Karali Chamano Javacha Sulohitaya Sudhumravarna Spulingini Vishwaruche Chadevi Lilayamana Iti Saptajuva. Kali the black, Karali the terrible, Monojava thought swift, Sulohita blood red, Sudhumravarna smoke hued, Spulingini scattering sparks, Vishwaruchi the all beautiful. These are the 7 swaying tongues of the fire. He who in these, when they are blazing bright, performs the rites in their due season. This is very important. You can't just perform when you like. Him, his fires of sacrifice take, and they lead him. These rays of the sun, they are where the overlord of the gods is the inhabitant on high, the one who gives the boons, who gives the gifts, the king of the gods. To him all these flame carriers take the person who offers. Come with us, they cry to him, these luminous fires, and they bear him by the rays of the sun, speaking to him pleasant words of sweetness, doing him homage. This is your holy world of Brahman and the heaven of your righteousness. That is, all these are little perishable pleasures. But these sacrificial powers flatter you. They make you feel sweet and big, and they make you confined to that lower movement. Then he says, but frail are the ships of sacrifice. The sage says, frail, breakable are the ships of sacrifice. Frail these forms of sacrifice. All the 18 of them. In which are declared the lower works. Fools are they who hail them as the highest good, and they come yet again to this world of age and death. That is, when your merit is exhausted, when you have enjoyed the fruits that you have earned by sacrifices, you are pushed down back here. You have to come back to the earth, to the scene of your labors, and resume. So these are temporary allurements. A real seeker will not care for these paradises and heavens. They who dwell shut within the ignorance and hold themselves for learned men, thinking, even we are the wise and the sages. Now these people who indulge in these think themselves to be very wise, think themselves to be learned. Fools are they, and they wander around, beaten and stumbling like blind men led by the blind. Blind men led by the blind is a famous expression describing how in the field of ignorance all are blind. One pretends to be knowledgeable and the others follow him. It is a case of the blind following the blind. Those who hitch their vision to the comforts and the luxuries of paradise, they are these. Once their merit is exhausted, they have to come back. And he says, they dwell in many bonds of the ignorance. Children thinking, we have achieved our aim of paradise. For when the men of works are held by their affections and arrive not at the knowledge, then they are overtaken by anguish, and their paradise wastes by enjoying, and they fall from their heavens. Minds bewildered, who hold the oblation offered, and the well dug, as is part of the sacrifice to dig wells for public, for public benefit. They used to dig wells at their own expense for the greatest righteousness, and know not any other highest good. On the back of heaven they enjoy the world won by their righteousness, and enter again this or even a lower world. But they, then he makes a distinction between these and the true seeker. He says, but they who in the forest follow after faith and self-discipline, calm and full of knowledge, living upon alms. They don't acquire, they are not acquisitive. Cast from them the dust of their passions, and through the gate of the sun they pass on there. Where is the immortal, the spirit, the self undecaying and imperishable? They do not come back. They are not cast down. The seeker of the Brahman, having put to the test the worlds piled up by works, that is, he knows that these are meaningless. Selfish enjoyments of the world and paradise have no appeal to him, because he knows their transitory nature. He arrives at worldly taste. He has a kind of repulsion for these hedonistic enjoyments. For not by work done is reached he who is uncreated. Works done means sacrifices, rituals. For the knowledge of that, for the knowledge of the reality, let him approach, fuel in hand. He approaches the teacher, fuel in hand. Now this is a very symbolic expression. Literally it means you take wood, chops of wood, which you light with a matchstick later. Now symbolic because fuel in hand means you must have the material in you which can easily catch the flame. You must have purified yourself. You must have taken pains to equip yourself, so that when you come in the presence of the teacher, you catch the flame. You are easily ignitable. So he says, let him approach, fuel in hand, a guru, one who is learned in the Veda. Veda is the book of knowledge, and is devoted to contemplation of the Brahman. He is not contemplating the sacrifices or the paradise or the rituals, but he is always communing with Brahman, the reality. To him, to this student, to the seeker, because he has taken entire refuge with him, in the teacher, with a heart tranquilized, the heart must be serene. There should be no excitement. There should be no grief. There should be no depression. Tranquilized. And a spirit at peace. That man of knowledge, the Guru to whom he goes, declares in its principles the science of Brahman, by which one comes to know the immutable spirit, the true and real. This the teacher does to the disciple, to the seeker, to the novice, who has gone prepared, who entrusts himself to the teacher with a spirit at peace, with a tranquil heart. He is ready to receive, and to such a person the Guru declares the knowledge. I think we break here for the time, 10-15 minutes. Any questions from the portions that we have read? Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question about sacrifice.
Yeah.
What's in the ancient period of the Vedas, people used to perform sacrifices a lot of animals, didn't they? And well, nowadays, is it different? Some, let me say, some more primitive kind of religions perform sacrifices. Is this different from sacrifices performed 3,000 years ago? Do you think that from the karmic standpoint, or
it started what, in a primitive way, what people liked themselves, they thought gods liked them. So the most cherished things, the best things, see, they would sacrifice, kill them and offer them to the gods and then take it. That was the original primitive beginning of sacrifices, anthropomorphic conception. But in the Vedas and such type of scriptures, there is an exoteric side and an esoteric side. So those who are initiated, those who are qualified, would use these same prayers and hymns for an inner communion with the higher powers, for attainment of union with the divine or communion with the divine. But most people, popular laity, they would use for praying for children, praying for wealth, praying for health, praying that nice things must happen after they die. The same kind of rituals would be there. But these people would perform for their personal ends. A few, the initiates, will perform for higher things. But in those times, there was not much of agriculture. So they all used to eat flesh. The Vedic rishis included, they all ate flesh. And that was the food they would offer. It is only later that they started offering grains and milk and things of that sort, when agricultural society took shape. But even when people developed later, still they continued this habit of sacrificing animals, because that was their food. They liked to do it. And there is a certain crude part of human nature which enjoys, in cruelty, violence. And for every religion there is a refined side and there is a very crude side, particularly the older religions. So here they are warned, don't do that. These rituals and these sacrifices are not going to deliver goods for you. You will have to come back. Learn that higher knowledge. Go to a teacher who will teach you and save you. That's what this Upanishad says. You wanted to ask something?
Earlier when you were talking about power and
For energy.
and consciousness,
Yes.
could you say more about what you mean by power?
Yes. Power is the capacity to effectuate something. If I know that this is to be done, this is right. But if I don't have the means to do it, I am powerless. If I have a technique, if I have a force by which I can effectuate what I want, I have the power. So you can say consciousness is knowledge in motion. I mean, what is that called? Power is knowledge in motion to effectuate itself. You are thinking up something.
What's the place of occultism in the whole?
What's the place of?
Occultism.
Occultism.
In the whole Hindu approach to
Yes.
liberation.
You see, occultism, it is treated in the East as a secret science, and it is just not taught or communicated except to those who pass through certain tests, as in Egypt and other countries, in India also. You have to pass through certain tests. Then only you will be taught. So there are hints in our various scriptures of occultism. It is called Gupta Vidya, that is mysteries. So a spiritual man may know it, but he won't teach it to everybody. You see, unless you are purified, you have courage, they won't teach you. Mother was a great master of occultism, and she offered to teach occultism, and immediately a number of our people wanted. She said, yes, but first satisfy my one condition, that is, you should give up fear. When you have given up fear, then you come to me, I will teach you. Nobody came. Yes.
Could you define occultism a little bit more, because I have an idea in my head and I'm not sure it's the same.
Now, yes. You see, now physical science has developed, discovered, systematized ways and means of giving us a knowledge of the processes of nature, physical nature, and given us even a power to harness some of our energies, utilize her resources, electricity and things like that. But that relates only to physical nature. Now, a knowledge of the processes and principles of inner nature, subtler nature, and the capacity to wield that power, that is occultism. That not what we know of physical nature is very superficial. Behind that, now there is rain, for instance. With all our best knowledge, we can't stop rain. We can't create rain. But occultism, I am illustrating, occultism tells you that there are powers, there are beings, little gods, little entities who cause rain. If you develop friendship with them, and they tell you how to do it, and you can induce them and make them cause rain when you want. Stop rain when there is a flood. Similarly, you have sickness. I get a power of summoning the universal forces of healing and direct it to you, and you get cured without medicine. So this knowledge of the inner processes of subtle nature, maybe mental nature, maybe life nature, maybe spiritual nature, at different levels, and utilize it, that is called occultism. When you utilize it for the good of humanity, it is called white magic. When you utilize it for the destruction or causing harm to others, that is called black magic. Now hypnotism. Hypnotism is a part of black magic only. Unless you utilize it for specific good purpose like curing a disease. Now you are convinced that you are got certain, there are what are called phantom diseases. They can be cured only by some such process as hypnotism. There it is all right. Otherwise, to impose my will on another, it is always wrong. So occultism is that. It is a double-edged sword. It can be used for good, it can be used for evil, but mostly when it falls in the hands of unscrupulous people, it is used for their own aggrandizement. Yes.
Could you say something more about the way the terms heaven and paradise are used in this Upanishad?
Heaven and paradise are same. You have the same connotation. It is a kind of an ideal world where all that you think pleasant, enjoyable, is in its superlatives. And their philosophy is, these are projections of our own desires. There are not geographical locations in the cosmic map like heaven and hell. What we want strongly, we prepare in advance, and after death, those states are projected in an idealized form, and that is called heaven. They are subjective states. That is why in Sanskrit there are many verses which describe each person carries his heaven and hell in his own mind. If we have exhausted our desires in lifetime, either we have satisfied or dismissed them as not worth the bother, then they don't pursue us afterwards. Otherwise, our soul is not free to go to its place of rest unless all these unfinished desires and things are worked out in that subtle plane. There, heaven. And if we have led a dark and a depressed kind of life, ill will and all that, we are surrounded by worlds of gloom of our own making, and they are hell.
Can you say a little bit about timing? About within the right time?
Yeah. Yes. In all things, there is a rhythm, a cycle of movement in time, and there are certain moments which are favorable for the fulfillment of what you want, certain moments which are obstructive, and these occultists, by a long study and experience, have indicated that full moon, for instance, is favorable for certain moments, new moon for some other things. Now you say there are some therapists, their experience must be that people who are mentally unbalanced, they are more upset at new moon and full moon. At any rate, in India, it's our experience. I don't know whether people in the West, they are more disturbed, And in our ashram also we have some people who warn us clearly, it is full moon, you better careful in your dealings with me. They are conscious, In yoga one becomes conscious. And similarly, there are things like, for instance, birthday. This is what Mother said, that on your birthday, you come back to that point in your cycle where you arrive at that virgin moment. The moment that you were at when you were born, free to live out your destiny. You can restart from that point. The past, if you make a resolution on your birthday that I will be this, the past will not stand in your way, because that is a moment which is a virgin moment. That is why she says birthdays are important. They are not important for social functions and social festivities. We have spoilt their meaning. But for those who are serious, a birthday always offers a beginning of a cycle. Similarly, a marriage anniversaries. An anniversary is an occasion to restart the object of that meeting. It may be marriage, it may be anything. One does feel different on that day, and whatever resolution one had at the beginning, that can be renewed and worked out. So this right moment, in Sanskrit we call muhurta. Muhurta is an auspicious, what is called the right hour. Sri Aurobindo has written a small piece called The Hour of God. In that essay he says, the hour of God, there are moments when the breath of God is moving on the waters of life, and at that time, such moments, a little effort will produce great results. There are moments where the breath is not there, so gigantic efforts will produce only small results. And he says, woe to the man at whose door there is a knock, but he is asleep. So we have to be vigilant. We don't know when is the hour of God. Timing is very important. We had a workshop for meditation last 3 days, and there I was pointing out how for study, for meditations, for prayers, regularity of time is most important. Because if you regularly do a thing at that time, a helpful presence waits for you. Whether you study or you meditate or do anything seriously, there is something in the atmosphere waiting at that moment for you. If unavoidably you can't do another matter, but if willfully you are out of idleness, negligence, you don't keep to your timings, that departs. So regularity, that time is, you must respect time. That is, respect your own commitment. That is important. All the ancient systems all over the world, this season, they call it season, in season and out of season, that was very important. For instance, before sunrise is considered to be very favorable for meditation, because active energies in nature are still asleep. Once the sun rises, all the energies are awake and push, So when they are still asleep, it is easier to gather your own energies. Similarly, after sunset, all the energies get to sleep. It is a favorable moment. Similarly, occultists, they choose midnight. Midnight, when the one day is over, another day starts. It is a zero period. That is a pregnant moment. And they will have the rituals at that time.
How do you know, though, that it is the time when something is not?
Things that have been long resisting, they give way. Things suddenly start happening favorably. You begin to have an optimistic outlook. So that's a sign that some positive curve has started, and we should take advantage of it. So Mother used to say that when the negative curve has started, just endure, just hold yourself. Don't start new enterprises at that time. Don't take important decisions at that time. But don't be depressed. Hold tight. Have faith. That faith and composure, she said, shortens the period of the negative curve. And if you utilize the positive curve, it gets extended. If you allow it to pass, well, it passes. So, vigilance, she said, vigilance, attention.
Isn't this a kind of manipulation of your own karma?
Yes.
Interference with your own...
Yes, you see, karma is not a rigid machinery. It is not a hard and bound mechanism. It is fairly elastic, and bulk of karma you can either negative or modify. It is only a certain part of karma that is called ineluctable. You can't cancel it. Even the divine grace will not cancel it, because the divine respects its own law. So there is certain part of our karma which we have to work out, pay for. And that karma is, in our modern language you can call, something heinous, where you interfere with the soul of another. You murder somebody. Now that is a karma for which you have to pay. No amount of good actions afterwards can release you from that. But you steal something from somebody. Well, that is a karma which can be wiped out. You betray the trust. You understand? That is a serious thing. So much of our karma can be modified. You see, by doing good karma, it gets less and it can be cancelled. The divine grace can be invoked, and that too wipes out a lot of karma. So after all, karma it creates grooves in your consciousness of repeating the same moment. These are what are called samskara in Sanskrit, latent impressions. They are a result of karma. And certain things, situations arise in such a way that you have to face that difficulty which you have created for somebody else. That is, you can't avoid it. And many of these you can get a glimpse in the rightly cast horoscope. What is the load of the past karma that is going to fructify in your present birth? That is shown. And to whatever extent it is possible to negative it, to modify it, that also is shown. You asked some question yesterday.
We were talking about death.
Yeah.
And I was talking about sort of a very Western view about death, where it's very, you're talking about something being ingrained, that's been ingrained in me. And I always find that, I've always wondered what are some of the things that, let's say from the East or whatever, they may say about that, let's say, something about
Yes.
The fears and everything else.
Whether in the East or the West, the wisdom is the same, experience is the same, but different religion theologies, they have obscured the truth. Christian theology has certain dogmas. Islam theology has certain dogmas. Buddhist theology has some. Like that. But the occult experience and knowledge is one, wherever you go. And that is, death is not the end of things. Death is only the end of the physical body. You continue to live. Even now you say my body, my mind, my soul, my emotions. You don't say body is I. You say my body. Now what is that mind? You are a being who is using this frame, physical frame called body, who has a mind, who has emotions. So we have a subtle physical body, bigger than this physical body. And when we cast the physical body, we go in the subtle physical body to our place of rest. We have a soul. That soul is the real you and I. It chooses and takes birth in a number of bodies, gains experience, grows in stature, till the spark becomes a flame and unites with the fire that is God. That is a imagery. And if when you are alive in your lifetime, you learn to detach yourself from your body, bodily movements, your desires, and become conscious of something in you which is not completely lost in the body or in the mind thoughts. There is a place, there is a being, that is called the soul or the self. That is immortal, that is eternal. Once you get to that, thereafter you realize that this body is like a coat, and birth and death are processes. Death is a passage to a greater life. Death is a process of life. The eternal life confines itself in one body now. When that body becomes useless, it leaves it and takes another body. So this idea, this knowledge, and a spiritual discipline to become conscious of that in us which is eternal and which is infinite. You get a glimpse of it, a little experience of it, then you understand death in its right colors, and you no more believe that death is the end. Death is a comma and not a full stop. Upanishads, study of these things, spiritual yoga techniques, they are intended to pull you out of all this wrong involvement and teach you to be conscious that I am something different. I am a spark of God, and death cannot cancel me. I change my body, that's all. So in your deep inside yourself there is a point, there is something which is eternal, which is above death. You must arrive there, and then death has no terror. That's the substance of all methods. Mother has written an essay on fear of death and how to conquer it. So there she clearly analyzes. She says one way is, which most people do, that death is inevitable and you reconcile yourself to it. Well, I am born, birth, where there is birth there is death, and you accept it. Second is, you accept it, you resign yourself to the will of God, and you have no difficulty because you take it that it is God's will. Third is, you recognize and become conscious of that immortal principle in yourself.